Today we uncover the shocking truth about UK chopped tin tomatoes. You've probably got two or three sitting in your cupboard right now, and why wouldn't you? It's one of the most basic humble products in the entire British weekly shop. A few tomatoes, a bit of juice, a tin. What on earth could go wrong? As it turns out, quite a lot. In fact, almost everything. Let's start with something that's on virtually every tin of chopped tomatoes you've ever bought in this country. And I guarantee most of you have never noticed it. UK food law only requires tin chopped tomatoes to contain a minimum of 60% actual tomato. 60%. So, by law, up to 40% of that tin, nearly half of it can be filler. And many of the biggest brands in the country sit right there, at that legal floor. You're handing over your money for something that's almost half not the thing on the label, and nobody's telling you. But it goes further than that. Check the ingredients list on most tins, and you'll find something called citric acid listed as an acidity regulator. Sounds natural. Sounds like it comes from a lemon or a lime. It doesn't. Citric acid, used in food manufacturing, is produced industrially by fermenting a black mold called Aspergillus niger on sugar substrates. That's what's adjusting the acidity of the product you're putting in your family's bolognese every week. And the reason it's in there isn't for your benefit. It's there because it standardizes a cheap, watery product and masks what would otherwise taste thin and flat. Then there's the tin itself. Most chopped tomato tins come with a plastic inner lining. That lining exists to stop the acidic tomato juice corroding the metal. The problem is that plastic lining has historically contained a chemical called bisphenol A or BPA, which is linked to hormone disruption and has been shown to leach directly into food. Tomatoes are highly acidic, which makes the leaching worse. The European Union banned BPA in food contact materials in December 2024. The United Kingdom hasn't. So right now today, some tins on British supermarket shelves may still contain it. And here's the one that's going to properly stop you in your tracks. A BBC Panorama investigation published in December 2024 tested 64 tomato products sold across the UK, Germany, and the United States. What they found was that a significant number of products labelled as Italian, sold as Italian, were allegedly found to contain tomatoes originating from Xinjiang, China, where international organizations have documented the systematic use of forced labor. Witnesses described picking hundreds of kilos of tomatoes daily under conditions too horrific to go into here. 17 UK supermarket products were named in that investigation. 17 products you've almost certainly bought before. Some of them brands you trust completely. So, we've gone through the major brands currently sold in UK supermarkets, and we're going to expose the 5 chopped tomato products you absolutely need to know about. Then, we'll tell you which ones are actually still worth buying. But before we do that, I need to ask you something. If what I've just told you in the last 60 seconds has already shocked you, imagine what the rest of this video contains, and think about the people in your life who've got no idea any of this is happening. They're buying these tins every single week. Their kids are eating this, and the corporations behind these products are counting on the fact that nobody's going to make a video like this. They're counting on your silence. So, the single most powerful thing you can do right now before we go any further is hit the like button and hit that hype button hard. Every hype, every share pushes this video in front of more people. It takes this information out of the hands of the people who want it buried and puts it in front of families who deserve to know what's actually in their food. You're not just watching a video, you're part of something. So please do it now and let's get into it. Tesco is the biggest supermarket in the United Kingdom. Millions of people shop there every week, and millions of tins of their own brand chopped tomatoes are bought without a second thought. After all, it's just tomatoes in a tin. Tesco wouldn't cut corners on something this basic, would they? Here's the first problem. The tin has a plastic inner lining. Unlike some of Tesco's budget range tins, which actually skip the plastic lining altogether, the standard own brand version has one. And as we've established, that means the BPA question applies because the UK hasn't followed the EU's ban. Tesco doesn't flag this anywhere on the packaging, why would they? The second problem is the manufacturer. According to publicly available information, Tesco's own brand, chopped tomatoes, are reportedly produced by Ladoria, an Italian company that openly describes itself on its own website as number one in the English market for tomato-based products under private labels. That means Laurier is simultaneously making own brand tomatoes for Tesco, and as we'll cover shortly, several other major supermarkets at the same time. You're not buying Tesco's tomatoes. You're buying an industrial commodity with a Tesco sticker on it. And then there's the BBC investigation. In December 2024, Tesco's own brand Italian tomato puree was among the products named as allegedly containing tomatoes linked to Xinjiang. To Tesco's credit, they were the only major supermarket to actually suspend supply from the manufacturer in question as a result of the investigation. But that suspension only happened after a BBC documentary forced their hand. The questions it raises about their chopped tomato line and the same supply chain are ones Tesco hasn't publicly answered. Morrisons positions itself as the supermarket that's closer to food. Their marketing talks about British farmers, quality produce, no-nonsense value, and their chopped tomatoes look every bit the part on the shelf. What the label doesn't tell you is that they're reportedly made by the same Ladoria factory, producing Tesco's, Sainsbury's, and Waitrose tins simultaneously. The variety on the shelves of Britain's supermarkets is reportedly largely a fiction. Morrisons was also named in the December 2024 BBC investigation, with their tomato puree identified as allegedly containing Chinese tomatoes. Unlike Tesco, Morrisons said they ran their own internal tests and found no evidence. And unlike Tesco, they didn't suspend supply. The products stayed on shelves. There's also the matter of what's going on further upstream. Even entirely separate from the China connection, Italian tomato farms have been extensively documented exploiting African migrant workers through illegal gangmaster systems known locally as caporal. Workers are charged for their transport, their housing, their food, sometimes even their job itself. The Ethical Trading Initiative found wages running roughly 40% below the legal minimum in some areas. 16 workers were killed in road accidents in the Puglia region alone during one assessment period. Crammed into vans, they'd paid gangmasters to ride in. The price pressure that makes a tin of chopped tomatoes 47 pence on a British supermarket shelf isn't magic. It's passed down to some of the most vulnerable people in Europe. Napolina. The name alone conjures up images of Naples, of Mount Vesuvius, looming in the background, of generations of Italian cooking heritage. Their own packaging leans into it hard. The branding talks about passion simmering beneath Vesuvius since 1965. The company is owned by Princes Group plc. They're headquartered in Liverpool. The products are prepared and packed for a Dutch company called Napoleon Foods BV based in Rotterdam. The Naples connection is a marketing story, not a real one. But that's not even the most embarrassing part of this entry. At least one consumer who bought both Napolina plum tomatoes and a tin of KTC, which costs roughly half the price, reported that upon checking, the ingredients were listed identically. They appear to potentially come from the same production line. When that consumer contacted Napolina directly to ask about it, they reportedly refused to comment. We'll get to KTC shortly. On top of that, Napolina has received multiple consumer complaints about excessive tomato stalks and skins inside the tin. One Mumsnet thread from 2024 had a user report finding approximately 10 stalks in a single tin. For a brand charging close to £1 and selling on heritage and quality, that's a significant problem. You're paying a premium in large part for a story that isn't true. KTC Edibles is a Birmingham-based brand that's historically served predominantly South Asian communities across the UK. Their tins are widely available in Asian grocery stores and increasingly in major supermarkets including Asda and Morrisons. They're cheap, widely used, and many households consider them a smart budget pick, a hidden gem. Some people call it the insider tip that savvy shoppers pass around. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. As mentioned in the Napoleon entry, a side-by-side consumer comparison found the ingredient lists of KTC and Napoleon plum tomatoes to be apparently identical, with the products appearing to potentially originate from the same facility. If that's the case, and Napoleon refused to deny it, then KTC is essentially the same product at half the price, which raises a straightforward question. If you're spending nearly £1 on Napolina, thinking you're getting something meaningfully better, what exactly are you paying for? A label, a story, nothing more. KTC's chopped tomatoes contain citric acid and follow the standard 60% tomato formula. There's no particular transparency offered on where the tomatoes were grown before arriving in the tin or what labor conditions existed at the source. For the price, KTC is what it is. But the households buying it in bulk, believing it's a hidden quality gem, are often then puzzled by why their sauces taste flat and acidic, and why no amount of extra garlic and herbs seems to fully fix it. That's not a cooking problem. That's a product problem. And the worst thing is that those households feel like they're making a smart choice while they're making it. Asda's standard-owned brand chopped tomatoes are again reportedly a Lauria private label product. Same manufacturer, same formula, different wrapper. What makes this entry particularly interesting is the metallic aftertaste that blind taste tests have specifically flagged for this product. Tasters described a kind of metallic quality and what one reviewer called a weedy chunks vibe, meaning the tomato pieces were sparse and watery rather than substantial. But here's the angle that really matters. The more a tin tastes thin and acidic and flat out of the can, the more you end up spending to fix it. You add a squeeze of tomato paste. You add a pinch of sugar. You simmer it for 20 minutes longer to reduce the liquid. You throw in extra herbs. Every one of those extra steps costs you time and money. The cheap tin isn't cheap once you add up what you've spent to make it taste like food. This is something the brands are absolutely counting on you not to calculate. Asda's own brand tomato puree was also named directly in the BBC Panorama investigation, specifically their organic range with lab testing allegedly finding Chinese tomatoes. Asda said they investigated and found no evidence, and the product remained on shelves. Now let's talk about the good stuff, because they do exist, and you deserve to know where to find them. The brands on the good list all share a few things in common. They're transparent about where their tomatoes come from. They don't rely on industrial citric acid to paper over a watery product. They use higher quality tomatoes to begin with, which means you'll notice the difference in the finished dish immediately. The sauces will be thicker, richer, and more intensely flavored without you having to rescue them with paste and sugar and extra simmering time. That's what you're actually paying a little extra for. Not a story on the packaging, a better product in the pan. And once you've made the switch, going back to the products on the avoid list genuinely becomes difficult because the gap in quality is so obvious you can't unsee it. Muti is the gold standard answer to almost everything we've discussed in this video. They're a genuine Italian family company based in Montecarolo in the Emilia-Romagna region. And when the BBC investigation broke in December 2024, Muti's products passed the lab testing for Chinese tomatoes. Their UK managing director went further and publicly called for taxes or bans on Chinese tomato imports, openly taking a stand. At a moment when every other company mentioned in this video was either staying quiet, running their own conveniently favorable internal tests, or simply refusing to engage. That kind of transparency doesn't happen by accident. It happens because the supply chain's clean enough that you can afford to shout about it rather than hide from it. Muti uses GPS tracking to trace tomatoes back to the specific field they were grown in. They publish traceability information on their website. Their tins don't contain BPA in the lining. The pulpa contains no added salt and no citric acid. And the flavor difference compared to everything on the avoid list is immediately obvious from the moment you open the tin. Thicker body, deeper tomato taste, nothing to fix, nothing to mask. This is what a tin of chopped tomatoes is actually supposed to be. And the fact that the industry's moved so far away from this standard is the entire reason this video exists. If Mati Pulpa is the everyday upgrade, this is what you reach for when the tomato is genuinely the point of the dish. DOP stands for Denomination de Origine Protetta, a protected designation of origin, which means San Marzano tomatoes must legally be grown in a specific volcanic soil zone in the Campania region of Italy near Mount Vesuvius. The soil and microclimate there produce a tomato with naturally lower acidity, thicker flesh, and more sweetness than anything grown in an industrial farm setting. San Marzano is a plum variety, not a round tomato, which means there's more flesh relative to seeds and liquid in every tin. You're getting substantially more actual tomato per gram than any budget product. Same verified muti supply chain, same clean lining, same traceability. For a simple pasta al pomodoro, where the tomato carries the entire dish, nothing currently available on a UK supermarket shelf comes close to this. That's the list. The difference between a tin that's been engineered to hit the legal minimum and one that's built around real quality isn't subtle. You'll taste it immediately. Thicker sauces, deeper flavor. No need to rescue the pan with sugar, paste, or extra simmering time. Know exactly which products are moving and which are not. They can even predict which products will be popular in the future. This is a big deal for supermarkets because it means they can stock the right products in the right places, and they can make sure they have enough of the popular products to meet demand. This is a win-win situation for everyone involved. Know exactly which products are moving and which ones are being left behind. Your trolley is a vote, and you get to cast it every single week. If you found this breakdown useful, hit the like button and share this with someone who does the weekly shop in your house. The more people who see it, the harder it becomes for corners to be cut quietly. Drop a comment below and tell me which everyday product you want examined next. We're going to keep digging. Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, and protect your plate.